Hi everyone. I want to talk to you today about my visit to the High Priestess Ida Resi Alit. I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly, but she's here in Bali, and I had the incredible experience of meeting with her yesterday. And I want to try to tell you what happened and what it was like, because I realize that not a lot of people are going to travel to Bali and come and have this kind of experience. And I think it's worth hearing about because there's something for us to learn that we can maybe do or be mindful of in our own lives that I was able to experience when I was there with her. So I had heard about this priestess from a woman that I had worked with in the States. She's located in Sedona. She's an intuitive like me, and I had reached out to her for some help on something. And she lived in Bali for 8 years. So she told me about the priestess. The priestess she's very unique. She's apparently the youngest person to ever become a priestess in all of Southeast Asia. Apparently when she was about 20 years old, she went into a trance, and her family actually thought that she was dying. And she went into this trance for several hours, and when she came out of it, she had downloaded everything required to become a high priestess. And she is apparently the only high priestess to ever have had an instant awakening like this. Apparently, to become a healer of this magnitude in Southeast Asia, you go through a tremendous amount of training and then years of testing in order to practice at this level. And within just a few hours, she had acquired all of the information. And they then took a few months to test her over periods of time regarding her knowledge, and she had all of it. And so by the time she was 21, actually on her 21st birthday, she was granted, made, I don't know the right terminology, into a high priestess. Gauging on, I don't know how old she is, but gauging how she looks, I'm guessing she's probably in her late 30s now. But anyway, I knew I wanted to see her. I set up the appointment online. She sees people at her family home where she grew up here in Bali. I had to travel about 45 minutes by car from Ubud, where I'm staying. And I had a driver. His name is Neoman. He was also recommended to me by this same woman. And he knew all about the priestess and where to find her, etc. So he took me there, and we drove through just amazing scenery, you know, rice fields, the tiered rice paddies. I mean, everything from a postcard I saw. It was so gorgeous. And then I came to this little village that was not unlike other villages, you know, lots of beautiful architecture, also rundown, you know, sections, nothing to indicate that the youngest high priestess in all of Southeast Asia lives there. We arrived at her home. Entering it was just, you know, what you might expect in any other home. Again, you know, nothing in particular was different from what I could tell. It is a big compound of sorts. There's different homes for the different families within her family that live there, and she has a lot of gardens. It was gorgeous. When I got there, we got out of the car, and Neoman had brought with him some of the traditional Balinese dress to cover me in. I knew that I was going to be having a water purification ceremony and that I was going to be getting really wet. But anyway, he dressed me in a traditional sarong with a sash around the waist, and I had a t-shirt. And he made sure that that was all on me correctly before we went inside. Then he led me inside to this area at the back where there was a platform and an altar. And the altar was decorated in all kinds of things that I don't recognize and really understand the symbolism of, and a lot of flowers, ringong and singing bowls, and water. And so we sat there on the floor for quite some time to wait because we arrived really early. And eventually she came out, and she sat down on the floor with me, across from me on a cushion, and we just talked. And it was amazing to me that this woman is in demand, in service to the world, and travels all over the world to use her gifts and her abilities. And here she is, sitting in her home across from me on a cushion. And she wanted to know what my concerns were, what questions I had. I shared with her some intimate things that I'm working on, and she gave me her thoughts and her guidance on what she thought that I needed to do. She never rushed me. She spent a long time. I was probably with her for at least a couple of hours. And she was so real and so beautiful and genuine and sweet and kind and wise. So we talked for a long time, and then she asked if we could meditate and pray together. So I sat on the floor, and she actually got up onto the altar and was kneeling on the altar facing away from me. And she began chanting, and she would use a bell and ring a bell kind of nonstop. And she did this chanting and a bunch of ceremonial things for a very long time, probably about half an hour, while I just meditated and prayed while she did that. Every so often I'd open my eyes to kind of check out what she was doing. And she was sprinkling water, she was taking flowers, doing different things with them, throwing them, holding them. She was using the singing bowl, just lots and lots of chanting and prayer in a language that I don't understand. And to be honest, I don't know that anyone understands it except for people who are a high priestess. So after she did that, she got down and told me that it was time for the water purification ceremony. And I had to go around the altar and down below the platform and around so that I was standing below her. That was so that she could dump water on me. And for probably at least 10 minutes, she did chanting and prayers, and she would touch my forehead and my head and different things, and dump water, like buckets and buckets. And I was completely soaked with cold water, over and over and over again. It was such a bombarding of water. At first I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I think actually that was like my body not wanting to release and let go. The purpose of the purification ceremony is to cleanse you of anything and everything that is blocking you, that is causing imbalances in you, that is preventing you from healing, preventing you from moving forward, keeping you from being the highest and best version of yourself. So it seemed kind of natural to me as she began dumping the water that I just couldn't breathe and I couldn't relax and I couldn't catch my breath. And I just kept telling myself, let it go, let it go, let it go. And she kept saying things like that to me too. And she wanted me to stomp my feet and shake my hands and breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth and, really make sound and say, and try to kind of let things go. So I kept in mind my prayers and the things that I was working on with her as I just allowed myself to release and let go of the things that were in my way from being and having the experience in life that I want to have. And it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. The peace that came over me about halfway through it, and the visions that I had of how simple life is meant to be and how complicated I was making it, and how all of this resistance and stress and anxiety I had about certain things was just all created by me, and that none of it was divine. And I just kept getting this message that the divine is so delighted in me and so delighted in anything I want to share and do. but that I don't have to do or share anything I don't want to. You know, one of my struggles that I was talking about the priestess with is this desire to make the most out of my life and not miss out and share with people so many things that I have learned over the years and teach more and use my intuitive gifts more. And I had kind of created this world of pressure on myself, like, Angela, you've got to do more, you've got to accomplish more, you've got to give more, you've got to share more. And what I saw in that experience was, you know what? If you love doing it, do it. And if you don't. And that the divine is delighted in me either way. It just took all this pressure off of me, again, that I was putting on myself. And it made me feel so light and so simple and clean and pure. And it made me realize that I love sharing and teaching and using my gifts and helping people because it brings me joy. And I really learned in that moment that that's all that matters. Is it making me happy? Is it something I love to do? Or is it something I think I should do? In the moments I think I should, I shouldn't. And in the moments that I want to, I can. And I've been thinking about how this applies to so many other things in life and how many times we do things because we think we should, not necessarily because we want to. And I think that sometimes we get confused between the two. You know, we might be resentful about a task that we have to do because we have to get it done. Like, I have to do the laundry, I have to clean the house, I have to go to work, I have to deal with clients, I have to whatever. But if we were to actually take a moment and ask ourselves, is that what you want? I think sometimes we'd say, no, that's not what I want. But then actually, to really think about it, do I want a clean house? Yeah, I do. And do I want to have clients? Yeah, I really do. Like, for my real estate work, I love my clients. I have the best clients. And I want them to come to me, and I want them to use me, and I'm so grateful that they do. And there's so many times that we, I think, get confused between the shoulds and the wants. And if we can look at things and really decide, is it what I want? It makes it so much easier to do and so much more joyful to do it in. If we take an approach of wanting to do something rather than thinking we should, then the energy that's behind it and the way that we go about it is completely different. You know, I was putting this stress on myself about kind of fulfilling my soul purpose and making sure I do enough in the world. And that was making it a should. And the truth is, I want to. So do it when I want to. And love every minute of it and enjoy it. And I want to apply that to more things in my life. After the cleansing, she changed her tone and her chanting, and she dumped different water over my head. I think this was like a different holy water or something, and I got a whole bunch of that dumped all over me. And then she had me do a bunch of movements and stretching to kind of, you know, get everything out of my body that was residual, that was still holding there. And then I got changed. And then we met back on the platform at the altar, and she sat on the floor with me again. And we did some more prayer, and she asked me how I was doing, how I was feeling, if I had any more questions. And I felt like everything that I had been concerned about was gone. All of the little things that were bothering me no longer mattered. All the things that I had asked her about were just so clear and obvious to me that I kind of looked at how I was feeling before and thought, like, how could I even have thought those things? Why was I worried about that? It's not a big deal. It's so easy. Life is so much simpler than we make it. So we were talking about this, and she looked at me and she just goes, I think you're all good now. And I said, yeah, I am. I'm great. I feel wonderful. I feel so peaceful, and life feels very good. So then we, had some hugs and parted ways. You can find her online. I have all of her information, so if you're curious about her or her schedule or her offerings, you can message me, and I'd be happy to share that information. But it was a fabulous experience. Anyway, all my love to each one of you. Blessings. And I hope that we all can continue to get out of our own way. All my love.